Hello, everyone. It's Charlton. Please subscribe to my channel. Tap the notification bell. I'd appreciate it. Majorly. So, this is who was that guy who had this idea that Hillary Clinton lost on purpose, and then Trump and her basically fixed the 2016 election? That would be me with that theory, and I definitely believe that theory. I definitely do. And so, Lev Parnas supposedly turned over some materials to the House Intelligence Committee. I guess that's Adam Schiff who heads that and stuff. And so I guess this stuff will just be included with all the evidence, whatever with the impeachment trial that should begin, and how that goes. Who knows? Who cares? But so that's what I'm here to talk about a little bit. And it's just these two notes here, where it's the Ritz-Carlton in Vienna. I assume he was there. I don't know. I don't think Giuliani was with him at this in this meeting. I think he's taking notes over the phone, talking with Rudy, I believe. Maybe he was. I'm not real sure. It's not terribly important. There's a couple different ones. I think everyone focused on this one. Put together package. Go to DC with package. Do my magic and cut deal. Victoria Joe, retain, that's the husband-wife couple. About getting dirt on, shoot. That one. That's the one that everyone zeroed in on. Get Zelensky to announce the Biden case will be investigated. Start me communicating with Zelensky, blah, blah, blah. That's not what I'm focusing on. I'm focusing on this one a little bit. Not really, though. This one right here, dude. That's the one we're here to talk about. Big time. Big time. So, Lev Parnas, I'm not even going to go through his background if you know who he is. If you don't, I don't know what to tell you. I've been talking about this forever. If you watch my channel, I have this theory that Trump and Hillary fixed the 2016 election, that Hillary lost on purpose. Why exactly? Whether she was blackmailed at some point and eventually became complicit, or if this is just all for money, and they're just making billions, millions upon millions and billions, and everybody's making money, man. Everyone's been getting so rich, at our expense, dude. But, basically, when we voted for Trump, I voted for Trump, all right? We voted for Hillary, too. It's the same thing. They are the same. Trump is Hillary. Hillary is Trump. So here is, he's like Lanny Davis. He calls him Lenny. It's Lanny with an A, who was former White House counsel to President Clinton. I believe that was his title. White House counsel, something counsel. When Clinton was president, and it's just a longtime friend of the, longtime ally, longtime associate of the Clintons. Very, very close to the Clintons. Used to be on Fox routinely for years, on Hannity. Basically, when it was Hannity and Combs, I don't know if quite that far back, probably. So, he worked with them at different periods, I believe. During the impeachment, he was a part of his legal team. Maybe he was actually working in the White House, or he was outside, part of his legal team, one of the two. But at some point, he was had an official position inside the White House as well. I mean, Clinton had 2 terms, And he also, by the way, was, in private practice representing Michael Cohen, whose wife is Ukrainian, and he worked for Firtash, Dmitry Firtash, the Ukrainian billionaire oligarch, close to Putin, close to Russia. Supposedly in the Russian mob is, how some people characterize him, whatever. And his career from 1970 to 1972, whatever. from 1996 to 1997, he was special counsel to the president. He served as special counsel to the president, President Clinton, from 1996 to 98, during which time he was also the spokesman for Clinton in issues regarding campaign finance investigations and other legal issues, including President Clinton's impeachment trial. So, but in any event, his name is Lanny, not Lenny, which kind of leads me to believe that Lev doesn't know all the particulars. He doesn't know what I'm been suggesting, even though he knows plenty. I mean, this dude is no joke, for sure. And it's funny because his attorney, Bondi, with no relation to Pam Bondi, it's actually with an I, and he describes himself as a cannabis, business attorney in New York, and he is. But I saw somebody on CNN who was a former assistant U.S. attorney in the Southern District of New York. I think it's Ellie Honig, I think is his name. Who had gone to court against him, where he was on the other side, a defense attorney, and he called him a mob lawyer, which, that sounded about right. I mean, I would say Lev has a certain look to him, that sort of leaps out at me, at least, and that's not meant to be anything, but So, but it says, and I like it says get rid of Lenny, and it's Joe Victoria, basically get rid of Lenny. Over here it says Joe Victoria. That's Joe DeJovana. I pronounce his name wrong every time. And Victoria Tunsing, the husband-wife couple, attorney, Trump attorneys, pro-Trump attorneys that were going to be hired by Trump at one point until people were like, what? And they withdrew that and become part of his legal team, but they've been hired by Firtash and they basically replaced Lanny Davis. Lanny Davis was working for Firtash from 2013, 2014, all the way up till July of 2019, which is right when the call took place, July 25th. But Firtash, toxic, get deal done, 1 to 3 months, cut deal, or get dismissed. So they're talking about Firtash's case, whichever. Get rid of Lanny Davis. I like the parentheses, though. I do like this. This cracks me up for sure. Nicely. Dude, it's just, I'm sorry. It's got some humor to it for sure. Get all info from case. I don't even know what that says. Ukrainian ledger. Ukrainian ledger is, that's Manafort stuff that's not worth going into. I'm not even here to really talk about that much other than, it's just hilarious that there's everywhere you turn. Everywhere. Clinton, Trump, overlap, intersect everywhere. In London and in Ukraine. And this is pre-election, pre-2016 election results. So, and then it says Congress, Senate, support, basically get support. Hire Robert Strike, who I hadn't heard before, lobbyist, or Brian Ballard, who I also hadn't heard of. So, obviously I went to look those two persons up, and they're both lobbyists, and they both seem to focus on lobbying on behalf of foreign entities, foreign governments, from some rather unsavory places around the world that other persons might not necessarily represent, whether it's Zimbabwe or, Kosovo, or just places, where that have horrible human rights records and are just not easy to defend publicly or represent publicly. And it's a foreign entity. I mean, this is where the Clintons basically, they started this whole thing, with the Clinton Foundation, which was a way to basically, because it's against the law, our lobbying is so corrupt internally, domestically, and there's so much money that is made in the lobbying political industry. But in my opinion, the Clintons basically saw this entire giant whole world out there that was untapped. And that's where the Clinton Foundation basically came into play. And I mean, this is just the Clinton-Trump taking that to just unfettered levels of, and it's not good, dude. It's totally just selling us all out to, just for easy fat paychecks from governments that have endless, supplies of money. and selling us out to all these different places, wherever it is, whether it's Saudi Arabia, which is, write a lot of checks, man. Selling access. Terrible, terrible, terrible. So, anyways. But let me just kind of try to go through this. It's a giant mess, and this video is going to be like 45 minutes long. It's just impossible. This is Ballard Partners, and when I went there, and I mean, it's headed or founded by this dude here. I forget his name already. Brian Ballard. There's an article over at Politico, and this is from April 2018, the most powerful lobbyists in Trump's Washington. They basically set up shop in Washington, D.C. It was a Florida lobbyist that had offices throughout Florida, but after Trump won, they set up shop in Washington, D.C., and I don't want to go through all that. It's too boring. But when I was looking at some of the people that worked for the firm, there's a couple that stood right out to me right away. Particularly one. One was Robert Wexler, but much, much more so was Jamie Rubin. For sure, huge. And I'll get to that. I'll get to it. But that Robert Strike. I mean, I was reading an article because I was looking him up. I never heard of him before. It just says he's a powerful lobbyist in Washington. He's very young, That's his picture right there. There and there. I don't know how dated that is, but it's not that dated. Believe me, he's young and he's making a ton of money. So, and his firm is called Solomon Policy Group. I mean, if you just look at a few articles, one of them here is titled "Trump Campaign Veterans Were Paid $5.4 million by Saudi Arabia for doing virtually nothing." And it goes on to say, topping the list is Sonoran Policy Group. That's Robert Strike's firm. A lobbying firm headed by Robert Strike, an Oregon winery owner and West Coast advisor to the Trump campaign, which was essentially paid $5.4 million by the Saudi government for doing nothing. The no-strings payout was a happy accident for the firm, one that happened because Saudi Arabia's political upheaval rather than anything Sonoran did specifically. Fair enough, fine. But what cracks me up is when I look down at this little bar graph here and it says who's been paid to lobby for Saudi Arabia in D.C. total spending by Saudi government in 2017-2018 calendar year, or that's probably fiscal year because it spans from 2017 into the middle of 2018. Whatever. The first one is Sonoran Policy Group, the one I just talked about, Robert Strike with $5.3 million. Number 3 is Podesta Group. $4.5 million in 2017-2018. Podesta Group is founded by Tony Podesta, the brother of John Podesta, Hillary Clinton's campaign manager, who I've talked about much in several of my previous videos, that plays heavy into this whole situation. Totally, particularly as it relates to Ukraine. I'm telling you, I know there's people watching these videos that know what I think. Totally. I know it, dude. So, that was just one humorous element to it. Then, when you read this article that talks about, Jamie Rubin, and actually, the lead Ballard lobbyist working for Zimbabwe, I believe, that's probably what he's worked on, at least that's what we're going to be told. Okay. And, but this article, what it stresses is how after Trump got elected, these lobbying firms that used to be basically one major firm. that did a lot of lobbying on behalf of sort of unsavory foreign governments. There used to be one firm that specialized in that. After Trump got elected, many spawned up, and there was multiple ones doing it. The one that did it before Trump got elected was you guessed it, was Podesta Group, and this says that in here. I mean, I'm reading, telling you what they told me, okay? But these other firms that they mention are Robert Strike and Ballard. So, and in this, just if I could, I mean, this is about his work for Zimbabwe. Jamie Rubin, the lead Ballard lobbyist working for Zimbabwe, and a former State Department official in the Clinton administration, said the firm's lobbyists thought carefully before agreeing to represent the country. While the country's new leadership had made mistakes, including a crackdown on demonstrators in January that reportedly killed 17 people, it is far better than Zimbabwe's government under Mugabe, Rubin said. And then it goes on to talk about several of the firms, in addition to Ballard, and Robert Strike is one of them, that are making lots of money lobbying on behalf of foreign governments that aren't very nice. And it basically says that at some point. And it names Avenue Strategies, a lobbying shop started by Trump campaign veterans Corey Lewandowski and Barry Bennett after the 2006. Chartwell Strategies, a lobbying firm started by Dave Tomasi, another former Trump fundraiser, brought in $740,000 lobbying for governments of Georgia and Kosovo. Gotham Government Relations and Communications, whichever. But at some point in here, it says how, these places are not nice and, but it's lucrative. Ballard and others aren't the first presidential campaign veterans to lobby for foreign governments. Tim Glasgow, for instance, joined the Podesta Group after working for Barack Obama's presidential campaign and went on to lobby for governments of Albania, Cyprus, Egypt, and Georgia while Obama was in office, according to disclosure filings. But the number of countries that have turned to lobbyists with Trump campaign connections is striking. Some of the countries are American allies, while others have stained human rights records, such as Zimbabwe, Turkey, and Democratic Republic of Congo, whichever. So, one thing that got me to thinking was, I started looking at J.B. Rubin, because he's part of the firm. And a couple of questions I had. I wasn't sure how close he was to the Hillary Clinton people. I mean, I know he worked, as it says, in the State Department, under Bill Clinton. But it says, actually, Mr. Rubin is currently contributing editor of Politico, writing regular columns on world affairs. Prior to that, he was senior media advisor for national security affairs in New York City for Hillary Clinton's 2016 presidential campaign. While in London from 2012 to 2016, he was a visiting scholar at Oxford University's whatever. I think he was in London while he was actually serving as Hillary Clinton's. He lives there. Okay, he lives in London. His spouse is Christiane Amanpour. The CNN reporter who reports from London. She was just on the news the other day because of the Iran crisis. That's his wife, who's Persian. And so. I tell you, man. But, so he worked on Hillary Clinton's campaign as the media advisor for national security affairs in New York City. For Hillary Clinton's 2016 presidential campaign. But one of the things that I was curious about, I had to go back and look at the timeline of when this whole, sort of Ukraine, this thing got exposed in this past summer, of 2019, but it started way back, and the whole timeline is pretty a little deep, And I was fairly certain it started like in April. I mean, in 2018, which it did. And I just quickly looked up somewhere, and it says, it begins with 2017, 2018, a Republican donor who happens to be a registered lobbyist for a Ukrainian corporation repeatedly called on the State Department to remove Yovanovitch, citing outlandish concerns. I don't remember who that Republican donor is. I don't know if that's just slipping my mind or if I never knew. But in any event, in April 2018, Lev Parnas told Trump that Yovanovitch was unfriendly to Trump and his interests. Trump suggested he should be fired. She should be fired. She should be fired. May 2018, following a similar conversation with Parnas, Pete Sessions, the congressman from Texas who eventually lost, requested Yovanovitch be removed from her post. And it goes on, But those dates seemed critical to me because I wonder when Jamie Rubin joined this firm, this Ballard lobbying firm, which is one of two firms on this pad that, it basically said Lev Parnas was sort of instructed to hire lobbyist Robert Strike or Brian Ballard. And I'm looking at this timeline. This is sort of beginning, at some point early 2018. It says May here, whatever. But just so has it that Jamie Rubin was joined Ballard in January of 2018. What do you know, dude? What do you know? Foreign policy pro James P. Rubin joins Ballard Partners. I don't know if it says what his focus was going to be. And that's not long after Robert Wexler, a Democratic congressman who joined in, I think, April of 2018. Or actually, April 2017. So Wexler was first. He's a Democratic congressman from Florida, of course. I'm not as quite as, and he's kind of an Obama guy, I think he started like a Middle East Israeli think tank type of thing after his time in Congress of 10 terms. I think 2010 is when he finally didn't step down from Congress. But Jamie Rubin joined January 2018, right before this Ukraine process was just getting started, or when it was just getting started. Pretty convenient. I mean, a pretty big coincidence, don't you think, dude? So, and he lives in London. I've spent quite a bit of time emphasizing. That doesn't mean anything, but these two campaigns were all over the place in London. Both the Hillary campaign and the Trump campaign, and they, there was a lot of things going on in Ukraine as well, but big time in London. London is a financial center of the world, but still, it's an American presidential election. What the hell are two presidential candidates' campaigns doing in London in the heat of the campaign and throughout the campaign? On and off. So, that's Tony Podesta. Let me just keep going, man. So, I decided to just check out the foreign registry, the FARA thing, whatever it's called, Foreign Agents Registration Act. So, and that's fortunately, that's a good thing, man. At least they do this, this is what they point to, this is that, but, they're like, see, wait, we're not hiding nothing, we're not doing anything wrong. It's all out in the open, man. So, I just decided to look up Ballard and Robert Strike on here. That's Ballard right there. You know what? And I don't know that we know exactly who he ended up hiring. We don't know. Did he hire Robert Strike? Did he hire Ballard Partners? But there was this CNN story here, that when you read this, if you don't know all this other stuff that I'm saying to you now, it's totally, meaningless. They know. They all know. Believe me. The corruption has gotten so bad. This Trump is so bad. He just is. And where it's just like everybody's bad, so it's impossible to arrest everybody. That's kind of what's going on. And we need to slow this down because it's completely out of control. It was always bad, but now it's just absolute pandemonium, badness. So, but it says from this article, and this is October 1st, 2019. I don't know if they broke the story. I suspect they did. Caitlin Polance and Michael Warren, connected by subpoenas, Giuliani and his Ukrainian middleman, Lev Parnas, face increased scrutiny. So, but it says here that in addition to other things that we don't need to review every single time, Lev Parnas comes up, financial records uncovered as a result of the lawsuit show the request from Congress is the second set of subpoenas linking Giuliani and other Trump affiliates to Parnas. The first set, part of a lawsuit filed in federal court in Florida earlier this year, sought Parnas' financial records and included a request for any work he may have done on Giuliani's behalf. Somebody unrelated to this was suing him on another matter. Financial records uncovered as a result of the lawsuit show Parnas spent thousands of dollars at Trump hotels in the fall of 2018, donated hundreds of thousands to pro-Trump super PAC, and received checks from Ballard Partners. Ballard Partners, a lobbying firm with deep connections to the Trump White House. And that's all it says, because then it goes on to say the financial ties between Trump's world and Parnas raised new questions about the nature of Parnas' relationship with Giuliani and so on. This is way back on October 1st. This is October 1st, 2019. And again, financial records uncovered, that he received, Lev Parnas received checks from Ballard Partners, a lobbying firm with deep connections to Trump White House. October 1st, 2019. So when you look at, their all their different filings, and there's not a whole lot here. And there's no naming of Ukraine, by the way. There's not. There's none over at Robert Strike's firm either, whatever it was called. Sonar and Policy Group. But I will say that, October 16th, basically 2 weeks after that story there broke with, saying that Lev Parnas received checks from Ballard Partners, this firm, James Rubin, filed a short form. And that thing, it says nothing. It doesn't say anything. It never does. No, none of them do. It just says they filed a short form. It doesn't say, in regards to what country they're representing, whatever. That's the form. Believe me, it tells you nothing. Unless I'm missing something, I may go back over it and read it closely and stuff, but it's not there. I've gotten pretty good at searching these things, and you have to just limit your time. But that's October 16th. I will say that, what Tony Podesta did, and it seemed to sort of save him a little bit, even though they totally threw Paul Manafort to the wolves, and who will eventually get pardoned. Believe me, that's coming in 2020, whether Trump wins or loses. If he loses, he's going to pardon him before he goes, and if he wins, he's going to pardon him anyways because he won. But Tony Podesta never did do his FAR registration for work he had done as it related to Ukraine and working with Paul Manafort back in 2014 when Paul Manafort had set up this public relations, or was doing work for some public relations think group in Ukraine that was intended to put out good press and good PR for Yovanovitch, who was the Russian who eventually fled to Russia, whatever. I don't need to review that. But the way Tony Podesta did it was he did a file after the fact saying, oh yeah, I forgot to register this and that sort of saved him from being prosecuted. They're difficult cases to prosecute. And his firm, I think, has actually collapsed since 2018, since this whole thing exploded. Not necessarily this, but the Mueller investigation and so forth. But in addition to all three on the very same day, Brian Ballard did a short form, and Sylvester Lucas also did a short form. And actually, if you see right up here, there's Pam Bondi. Pam Bondi, who is the former Attorney General of Florida, of course. Okay, this is a Florida firm. But, you know, and who's now handling some of the impeachment proceeding legal work in the White House. And at the same time is working for a lobbyist, that, I don't know, that according to this, Lev Parnas was suggested to hire as it relates to Ukraine. So, it's pretty funny. I tell you, and you look at all the people that are employed by Ballard Partners and all their different divisions, West Palm Beach, Tampa, Orlando, Miami. She was hired in January 2019. So basically exactly a year ago. Jacksonville, Fort Lauderdale, Tallahassee, Washington, D.C. I mean, here's the press release, which is a PDF. It's like, it's in the Washington Post, but I don't know. It just seemed to be buried a little bit. I don't think there's an actual article from Politico. Who knows? But this is announcing it from Ballard Partners. But her photograph is nowhere to be found in here, But back to the three filings on October 16th, 2019. And I just don't know what those are, I don't know. But I decided to look up Sylvester Lucas. And he has a very long history in politics and lobbying, as well as working inside and out of the government. Very, very long, a big career. He's probably super wealthy by now. He's been a lobbyist in Florida, Miami, I think primarily, much of his life. But he worked in the government going all the way back to Carter, in the State Department. When they had the Cuban, I forget the name of it, where, basically where Castro had the policy of sending, we had the policy that if anybody got to the United States by, boat, I think Carter announced this, if they stepped 1 foot on land, they became a citizen. So Castro basically let all of his criminals out of prison and said, go ahead, So he was in the State Department then, as well as he was a U.S. attorney in D.C., and he worked in, in private lobbying practice for years. So it's hard to necessarily point to anything. I mean, here's the dude right there where he's pictured with Rex Tillerson, 2017, no big deal. That's the dude on the right. But he had previous firms, Sylvester Lucas, with Lucas Balsera, which is an older firm. It's a lobbying firm. I mean, it's weird when you look it up. There's some that say it's a contractor. I think his father-in-law was a contractor. He's got a long history. There's a giant article over at something New Miami Times or something New Times about this long story of how he met his wife. And it's very, very, there's some legal proceedings in there. There's some bribery stuff in there. And it's nothing that terribly, pertinent to this. But this I did find a little interesting, even though it's dated. And I think this firm didn't exist much beyond, I don't know how long it did. The only thing I could see was 2006, 2008, 2009, between Balsera and Lucas. I think this is a document here that has a filing date of 2008, another one in 2009. That's Lucas Sylvester. And that's Alfredo Balsera and Lucas Sylvester. That's got to be the same dude, And this is where a lobbying list, what's it called? Didn't it say it there? The City of Miami lobbying list, and there's the firm there. It's from 2006, and there's the firm there, with both Balsera and Lucas. But Balsera is Alfredo Balsera, okay? And at some point, they split off, and, he, I think, went to Ballard, or helped start Ballard. I think he's a pretty, he's one of the managing partners. He's one of the principals, to the best of my knowledge. He might have been one of the persons to help start the firm. I don't know for sure. Well, Ballard is Brian Ballard. I don't know. I'm not real sure. But these two at some point split off because Alfredo Balsera now has his own communications firm, over here. And that's him there, who seems pretty young. I don't know. I mean, that might be Alfredo Balsera's son. I'm not real sure. I must say that he's Freddie Balsera. It's probably the child of Alfredo Balsera. But he worked on the Hillary Clinton campaign, a lot of these guys, when the lobbyists, they play both sides. But he worked on the campaign, So Mr. Balsera's activities as part of the 2016 presidential election include serving as a board member of the Correct the Record, the super PAC, working in coordination with the Hillary Clinton campaign. He is also a surrogate speaker for the campaign, whichever. And that's pretty much, the whole story there, dude. Everywhere you go, man. Everywhere you go, Trump and Clinton are joined at the hip. Trump is Clinton. Clinton is Trump. All right? We voted for Hillary Clinton. That's just the unfortunate truth. It's just a theory, though. And that is the story there, man. Thanks for watching my videos. Please subscribe to my channel. Give me a like down below. I'll see you in the next video. Later, man.